Hello and welcome to today's lesson. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And today is a very useful English lesson. I think it's very important. So without further ado, let me tell you today we are going to be talking about context clues. And this is extremely important for your reading comprehension, but I think it's also very useful for building vocabulary. So those two things, I think when you practice using context clues to build your vocabulary and understand whatever it is you're reading, it's going to improve your overall English fluency. And please, I always encourage you guys to read as much as you can. So if you are joining me again, say hello in the chat. Love hearing from all of you. Even if you are watching this later, please write your name in the comments. Tell me where you're from because I just love hearing from you. So hello, hi, Aiden, Sleepwalker, Ahmad, Mary, Kareem, Edward, Vaithi, Esther, Angela, Carlos, just trying to get out as many quick shout outs as I can. Ricardo, Layla, thank you guys for joining me today. And as I go through, I'll try to get in some more shout outs there. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope you are staying safe and staying healthy. So we're going to practice using context clues today. And the idea, again, is to give you some practice so you understand, well, what it means to use context clues. But I also hope that you'll be able to build your vocabulary and maybe learn some new words today, because as we go through this, that's the idea. I want you to try to think about, well, what do these words mean? You may already know some of their meanings, and that's great. You can just review them, but that's what I want to practice with you today. So let's just start out by talking, I just want to tell you, well, what are context clues? Just give you a basic definition. So what they are is that they are hints that an author gives you to help you understand the meaning of a difficult or unusual word within a book. So the clues may appear within the same sentence as the word, or they may come in the sentences before or after the word. So you just keep that in mind. Often you find them within the same sentence, but you could find them either before or after the word. And if you kind of understand the whole meaning, then you have a better chance of understanding, well, what does this word mean? If there is an unknown word, you have a better chance of determining, okay, this is probably what the word means. And we all do this when we're reading, because when you're reading, no matter what language, even now, if I'm reading a book in English, I will read words that I may not know the exact meaning, but I can try to put them into context and say, okay, it probably means this. Okay, so what I want to do next, this is kind of going to lay it out for you, what I want you guys to do. And if you're with me, even if you're watching this later, I want you guys to participate and write your answers in the chat, write your answers in the comments as we go through these and you're trying to think about the meaning of the words. So we're going to do this in 3 steps. There are 3 fingers. There they are. We're going to find an unknown word. But I'm actually going to give you the word. I'm going to tell you the word that what I think would be unknown, and then we're going to look for the context clues. And then I want you to see if you can guess, well, what is the meaning of this word? Based on those context clues, what is the meaning? So that is how we're going to do this. I'm going to start just with basically one sentence at the beginning. And as we continue and go through these, it's going to get longer and longer and longer, and I think it will get a little more challenging as well. So let's just begin. We'll start off slow, start off with a simple example, and the first sentence that I have for you is this, okay? So here's our sentence. The movie was very bloody and grotesque. So you know that, well, what I'm talking about right now, talking about a movie and then describing it. So basically this is the word that I wanted to focus on, grotesque. You may know what it means, but if you're watching this and you're like, I'm not exactly sure what that means, let's look for those context clues. I already mentioned that, well, what's the topic? What are we talking about? We're talking about the movie. Now, what other word can help us describe that? Bloody. So those two words would be the context clues. And based on that, okay, a movie, a bloody, probably you can think, well, what does it mean, grotesque? It probably does not mean something that is funny or humorous. What you would say is that it means something that is strange or unpleasant. It is an adjective that is used to describe a noun, and it means strange or unpleasant. It's grotesque. You could use it to describe a movie. You could use it to describe food. If you think something is very disgusting, it's strange, it's unpleasant, you could say, oh, it's grotesque. This is grotesque. Now, I will tell you all of these meanings that I got, I have taken these from Cambridge Dictionary. That is a dictionary that I like to use, and I would highly recommend it. And the reason I like Cambridge is because I think they give a very easy definition to follow. They use words that are simple, and I think it's a very clear definition. So when I show you the meaning of these words, I took all of them from Cambridge Dictionary. If you haven't checked it out, I will throw a link in there right there to Cambridge. So the other thing that I wanted to say is, again, you may find some other context clues that might help you that I don't necessarily identify. So even if I identify something that maybe you thought of something else, then that's perfectly okay. There can always be more than one or two or three context clues. So keep that in mind. So let's continue. The next example that I have for this is right here. So now we're moving into a little bit of a story. And I could say, dark clouds surrounded us. The ocean was angry and lifted our boat up and down. It was a perilous journey, and few of us survived. So I think just reading that, you can probably put a picture in your mind, which helps with your comprehension. But what if you're thinking, well, I don't know exactly what perilous means. What exactly does this word mean? We know that it is an adjective because of it's part of speech. It's describing the word journey. But based on what we just read, what do you think this word means? What do you think would be some good context clues? All right. So the ones that I would point out, all right, just to talk about these would be my context clues. You could use any of these. So if you have dark clouds, the ocean was angry. Oh, that's not good. And few of us survived. So this is the situation that we're in, and something is perilous. Yes, I think you guys, you're rocking this, all right? Perilous just means something that is extremely dangerous. Excellent. Anima, Esther, Aiden, perfect. Rosalinda, Amaj, throwing some shout outs. Yes, everybody said dangerous. Cece Murillo, excellent. Great job. Mary, Gladys. So again, now you get the idea of what we're doing, and it's going to get a little longer now. And this is very common when you're reading. So some of the other examples I have for you that are coming up, there's going to be a little dialogue in there as if people are having a conversation. So let's go to the next one. It's going to get a little more challenging. And here is our little a couple sentences. The boss was sly and clever. During the interview, he refused to admit the company did anything wrong. Therefore, he tried to obfuscate the truth. So again, I think you can read that or even listen to me say this, and you can kind of get the main idea. You know what's happening. However, maybe you might be looking at this and thinking, well, I'm not really sure. What does it mean to obfuscate? All right, what does this verb mean, obfuscate? This is actually a verb from one of our vocabulary lessons, advanced verbs that I did a while ago. So I'm giving you this situation, and I want you to think, what do you think this verb means? What does this word mean, obfuscate? He tried to obfuscate the truth. So again, if you're reading something just like this, the first thing you want to do is look for some context clues, all right? So these are some of the context clues that I identified, all right? So you're describing this boss, all right? He's sly and clever, okay? Sly is not really a good word. to describe somebody. He refused to admit something. So this person does not want to tell the truth. So in that case, he's trying to obfuscate the truth. So in the example, yeah, you guys, a lot of you are saying hide out there. Karim, twist the facts. Yeah, I think, again, those are all great answers. I think you're really getting this. The Cambridge define this: if you're trying to obfuscate the truth or some information, you're trying to make something more difficult to understand or comprehend. So in this case, the boss, he doesn't want to admit, it's an interview, he doesn't want to admit everything's wrong. So he's trying to think, well, I'm not going to lie, but I'm just going to make the truth very confusing and difficult to understand, so that maybe people don't think we did anything wrong. And that way they're not going to be a little angry. So I think that is, it's a collocation, you might find it, to obfuscate the truth. That you're trying to make it very difficult to understand. I think this happens a lot if, like, in talking about politics or some kind of situation in which you don't really want people to know the truth and really what's going on. So you try to make things more difficult than it really is. And in this case, obfuscate the truth. All right, so let's look, again, we're going to keep moving along. One thing I wanted to point out is I told you that this is primarily for reading. You could use context clues in listening all the time. I think we do this, but we just do it quickly. When you're listening, it's moving so fast, you don't really have time to go and point out and think about the different context clues. You're really just trying to follow along the main idea. But your brain does do that, and you really do it quickly. Reading, it's more of a reflective skill where it's very reflective, where you can stop, you can go back, you can look at a word, then you can go back and look at the other words around it. So this is a great way, again, to practice context clues, build your vocabulary, improve your reading comprehension. So here we go. Now this is a little bit more of a dialogue, and I'll read it. So let's say, Mary suddenly appeared. Tom looked shocked to see her. I know you went to the party without me, she said. I don't know what you're talking about, he replied, somewhat nonplussed. Okay, so this is, again, the situation. It's a conversation between two people, Mary and Tom, and she's kind of accusing him, like, oh, you did this without me. Now, again, I think you understand overall, well, what happened in this situation, but maybe you're thinking, well, he replied somewhat nonplussed. All right, we're describing Tom the way we're describing the way he is. It's an adjective, but maybe you're like, I'm not really sure what this word means. So again, think about this. What do you think? What do you think this adjective means? If somebody looks nonplussed, or maybe they say something nonplussed, what do you think that word means? So let's go back. Let's look for some context clues. And what I would say is this right here. All right. So think of the situation. She suddenly appeared, and Tom, he looked shocked. And then when he was giving his answer that okay, because of that, you should be able to think, okay, if somebody, he replies somewhat nonplussed, then, okay, yes, excellent answers. Mary, Asif, excellent. Sleepwalker, I thought, yeah, all right. If you're nonplussed, then it means that somebody is surprised or confused. That is just the way that that is their description. So Tom, in this situation, he was shocked. He didn't know what to say. I don't know what you're talking about. So you could say that he, replied somewhat nonplussed. All right. He was a little surprised. He was a little confused. This is another word. If you ever read the books Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, she likes to use this word quite often. You would come across it, the way people say stuff or the way she's describing a character as nonplussed. All right. So if you're reading Harry Potter, keep an eye out for that one. Okay, so again, we're going to make it a little more challenging. I like to try and make it a little more difficult as we continue and see if you can try to understand these different unknown vocabulary words by using the context clues. So here's another situation. It was well past midnight. They had been working diligently to finish the project before the deadline. I can't work anymore. I'm beat, he told her. Yeah, it's getting late. Let's call it a day and finish up tomorrow, she said. Again, I think the situation, very easy to follow. I think you probably understand it, but maybe you're like, well, there's a few words in there I don't know. So I'm highlighting these three for you. Again, maybe you're familiar with them, maybe not. And if you're not, let's see if you can find some context clues and see if you can determine the meaning of these words. So the first one we have diligently, beat, and call it a day, the expression. So let's take one at a time. We're going to start with diligently. And the context clue that I would say, okay, finish the project before the deadline. So think about this. Somebody is working diligently. It is an adverb describing how this person works. So if you're trying to finish something before a deadline, what do you think? How would you be working if you're trying to do that? Excellent. Sure, Sylvia, Rasha, Sleepwalker, perfect. Mahmoud, yes. If you're talking about somebody who's working diligently, again, the Cambridge, I'm giving you the Cambridge meaning, it means that they are working, well, carefully and with a lot of effort. They're working hard. I would also, again, this is their definition. I would also, to me, it also means that you're kind of working continuously too. That you're working so hard that you're really not stopping. You're very focused on this work and you are working diligently. Okay, let's look at the next word, which was in that discussion when the guy said, I can't work anymore. I'm beat. So if somebody says I'm beat, what do you think it means? And I've given you these two context clues. All right, what time is it? It was well past midnight. And then basically what he said, it's well past midnight, and he says, I can't work anymore. I can't do this. I can't work anymore. I'm beat. This is an informal expression. I guess you could say it's a little bit of maybe slang, but I think it's very common. I think people use this quite often when you can put it into context. And if somebody says, I'm beat, yes, it means exactly. Sky, Ricardo, Crack Crazy, excellent. Murillo, Gertrudis. If you're beat, then it means that you are extremely tired. It is an adjective, and you would say somebody would just describe themselves. You would use it as a predicate adjective as well. Somebody say, I'm beat, or, oh, he's beat. Somebody is extremely tired. Then that last word, that other unknown word was it's a phrase, call it a day. Let's call it a day. And the context clues that I have for you would be, first one is getting late, again, referring to this time. And then she's replying like, we'll finish up tomorrow. So it's getting late, finish up tomorrow, call it a day. This is an idiom that I hope that based on that context, you could easily determine that to call it a day, the idiom means that you are... It means that you are going to stop what you're doing because you just can't do it anymore. And you use this idiom, I think, when talking about work, that you are doing some type of work at your job, or it could be school, and you are so tired you cannot continue. Somebody might say, let's call it a day. We can't work anymore. Let's call it a day, and then we will continue later. We'll call it a day. So that is a good idiom to know, good expression, because if you're working, you're too tired to continue, and you're working with somebody else, you could tell them, like, look, let's call it a day. Let's stop what we're doing. All right, so I got another one for you. Again, it's a longer paragraph, and we are going to identify several different words. So here is the paragraph, and think about the situation, put a picture in your mind, and try to think about, how these people feel. So I said, I told him we were not buying anything and that he should put the toy back. He then proceeded to throw a tantrum. It had been a very rough day, and I was already at my wit's end. I was in no mood to deal with his puerile behavior. I took a deep breath and tried to relax. After a few moments, he calmed down as well. So I think the situation is, again, rather, it's not too advanced. If you're listening to that, if you're reading it, you're like, okay, I understand what's happening. But perhaps there are these 3 words or phrases that you're not exactly sure what they mean. But again, if you're reading, it's reflective. You can stop and say, okay, let me look around and find the meaning of these other words and phrases to help me better understand this unknown word. So we have tantrum, at my wit's end, and puerile. All right. So let's begin. Let's take this one at a time and talk about a tantrum. And I got those first context clues for you of think about the situation that leads up to this tantrum. All right. Somebody's saying, like, I told him to put that we're not buying anything today. All right. We're not shopping. We're not buying anything. Put that toy back. If you were talking to, in this case, she's talking to, assume like her little boy, then what do you think their reaction would be? He throws a tantrum. And this is it's a good collocation because we use this with the verb throw. Somebody throws a tantrum. You could also say somebody has a tantrum. So we use it with either throw or have. And yes, I think excellent. Perfect. Aiden, Manpreet, Morgiana. Yes, if somebody's throwing a tantrum, it's, again, they defined it, Cambridge, as a sudden period of uncontrolled anger. And I think this word is often used when you're talking about children. Maybe, again, they get really upset all of a sudden, and you could say that they are throwing a tantrum, or maybe they're just, they're really having a tantrum. But I think it's commonly used with throw. Somebody throws a tantrum. Let's look at the next one. This is at my wit's end. This is an expression that I don't know if it's more of an American expression. I'm not really sure if it's commonly used in British English, but it's an expression that you might hear it in a movie or a TV show. I'm not going to say that it's super common, but somebody might say, I was at my wit's end. They're describing the way they feel. And here are some context clues that, you now know what tantrum means. So he proceeded to throw a tantrum. All right. And already I'm saying it was a very rough day. How do you think that person feels? That it's been a really difficult day. It's been a bad day. And that now they have a child who is throwing a tantrum and they say, I was already at my wit's end. It's been such a bad day. I was already at my wit's end. What do you think that would mean? All right. So again, this is an expression that means if somebody says, I'm at my wit's end, it's almost like you're saying you're at your breaking point. You are already at your breaking point. And again, the way Cambridge defines it is you are so worried or confused that you don't know what to do next. You're very worried, you're very confused, and you're like, okay, it's almost like you can't think of what you should do next. You're kind of panicking. And you could say you're at your wit's end. Again, I think of another expression you could think about the meaning of this phrase is somebody saying, I'm at my breaking point. Many of you are talking about, you're losing patience. That's another great way to think about it, that you are at your wit's end, you're at your breaking point, you're losing patience, and you don't know what to do next. Then we have that last word, puerile. I think in some Americans may pronounce it as puerile as well. I think in British English is kind of more so how I'm pronouncing it, puerile. But they're talking about puerile behavior. So again, let's look at these context clues that the child proceeded to throw a tantrum. You were already at your wit's end. And then you were trying to relax. So they're describing the child's behavior as puerile. So what do you think it means? I think it's very obvious. Now, I realize, and I will tell you afterwards, I don't think I used it in the right context, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But I think all of you, yes, are getting some great answers. Perfect. 1D3R, 1N. Sorry, I didn't get all that. Ruma, Mary, Sleepwalker, exactly. Gladys, Joseph, perfect. So if somebody is, you're saying, is puerile, the adjective, it basically means childish, that you were behaving in a silly way and not like an adult. The reason why I said that maybe I'm not using it in the right context is because, of course, a child is going to have childish behavior. I think puerile it's an adjective that would more commonly be used when talking about maybe a teenager or even an adult. Somebody who should be a little more mature, and they're not acting like that, they're not acting like an adult, then you might use that adjective and say they have, puerile behavior or a puerile manner, or maybe making a puerile comment. So again, I think it's more commonly used to describe somebody who should be acting like an adult, but is not acting like an adult. So in my example, I was talking about a child. Of course, a child should have, well, it's not a surprise that their behavior was a bit childish. So again, this is so important, like for your reading comprehension. And it is such a great way to use reading in order to build your vocabulary, because I always tell students, especially, building your vocabulary, it improves your fluency because you can use more precise language when you want to describe your thoughts, your opinion, your ideas. And one of the best ways to do that is just to read different books, newspaper articles. And like even today, you guys were reading these examples. All of it helps. And I really hope that you guys learn some new words today just watching this lesson. So I thank you guys so much, all of you, for joining me. If you guys want to connect with us, if you guys are interested in sponsoring and supporting Interactive English, we now have both YouTube memberships, Patreon. Links are in the description. We offer some different rewards, and it's all the same, whether it's on YouTube or Patreon. All those rewards are the same. Notice some patrons in here today, like Aiden. Excellent. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you found this lesson useful. If you did, hit that like button. And this is a great way. I want to do more practice like this in the future because I think it is so valuable for improving your English skills and really reading and finding these context clues to understand new vocabulary. Thank you, Aiden, Mahmoud, Ruma, Mrs. Farhan Haider, Manpreet, Sleepwalker, Rosalinda, just trying to get in many shout outs as I can, Angela, Sanaz, Samuel. Hope you guys, again, have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you guys next time. So long.